Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV. I'm Dishha Bagchi. For the last 3 weeks, we've been seeing dramatic visuals coming out of Iran of massive protests on the streets, thousands taking to the streets, calling for the fall of the Iranian regime. Meanwhile, there's violent crackdown against these protests by the Iranian government, and US President Trump, meanwhile, is threatening the Iranian regime, even considering military intervention in Iran and supporting these Iranian protests. So, to decode these developments further and understand the sentiment on the ground, we have with us Haleh Blake, who's a British-Iranian activist and the founder of United for Mahsa. So, Haleh, my first question to you is, help us understand what the sentiment is like on the ground in Iran. Of course, there are slogans calling for the fall of the Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei's regime. But at the same time, is there support for the exiled Crown Prince?
Thank you for having me on. Yes, we are seeing a historical milestone in the people's movement. And what we have seen is initially what started in the bazaar and started with the merchants rapidly grew into political unrest, which meant that people from all ages, all walks of life actually joined these. And following the call of the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi on the 6th of January, with people came out in what I can describe as a sea of numbers that we have never seen before in all 31 provinces. We have seen chants of Javid Shah, which means long live the king, and this is the last battle. Pahlavi will return in all of the locations from the crowd. So that in itself it shows what people are asking for, and they're no longer saying what they don't want, which previously we used to see that, they say down with the regime and death to Khamenei. We still see death to Khamenei, but we are actually seeing a little bit beyond that. So people can actually envisage a future, and they have a plan for what happens next. And we've really seen that. And I've just seen scenes of a large protest in London outside of the Downing Street, where thousands have joined with the same chants that came out of Iran: Javid Shah and Pahlavi will return. So the support is really outstanding, but the support itself is for him to lead as a transition, and he's already outlaid in his communication previously. He wants to get to a secular, democratic Iran and get us to ballot boxes, and that's why you can see a large coverage and a large segment of community are coming out in his support, and people are risking their lives on the ground in Iran. And we have seen images of protesters chanting Javid Shah and getting shot at the same time. So people are living their life for that view, and the name and the family is actually bringing a lot of nostalgia for Iranians. We look back at the progress that we made. People now look at the infrastructure. When they look at economy, they look at the rial losing 98% of its value since 1979. So I think that's what people are comparing the before of this regime, and they do not trust anyone else to get us to a democratic Iran. So I would say we are seeing widespread support for him.
US President Trump has repeatedly threatened the Iranian regime and also expressed support for the Iranian protests, saying that the US supports these protests. Not just US President Trump, but various US senators have also said that they support the protests and have threatened against the Iranian regime to stop their violent crackdown against these protesters. How do the people of Iran see this US support? Do they welcome the support by President Trump?
They welcome these words. They are a word of support to the Iranian people, stating that America is behind them, and that's a very strong leadership that we did not see before in our previous protests. We did not see much of support and backing from previous presidents such as Biden and Obama, and therefore people are welcoming it. And I think those very few words that he shared on social media made people braver to go out without any ammunition or boots on the ground. So that in itself, it speaks for itself. But from what I hear firsthand from protesters on the streets, they saw that as an encouragement that this is the only chance they have to get out, and they have done so. And there are thousands and millions of paying for that with their lives.
Iranian President Pezeshkian spoke today to media saying that the government is working on economic reform to fix the economic crisis, the fall of the currency. But at the same time, he threatened the protesters, saying that they must stop causing instability in the country, this unrest in the country. So, how do you see these developments? Do the people of Iran believe in the president's words that economic reform will take place?
Well, first and foremost, we actually see the president as a selected president, not an elected president. And what we know is that this regime has never done anything to improve the economy since its inception. It doesn't matter which type of president is in power. As we mentioned before, the currency has had a downfall, losing pretty much all of its value since they came to power. So people do not see a way forward with the economy, and their threats, to be honest, we have seen this is the only weapon they have is threats and machine guns against protesters. It's never been about improving the lives of Iranians. And we know that sanctions, for example, came into effect because of the regime, because of its hostile activities, because of hostage taking in the 1980s. We saw them assassination of dissent in Europe. It's those very specific elements that made the international community concerned about the nuclear weapons, and therefore the sanctions were implemented in 2006. Iranians know exactly the timeline of these events, and therefore these threats are very much repeated president on president. And from what I hear on the ground from the people, they have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Now, some pictures from these protests that have been going viral show women burning pictures of the Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei and burning cigarettes from these pictures. And now these pictures have really gone viral and have increased the support for these protests. So how do you see these visuals and in a sense, women really taking the front stage when it comes to the protests?
I think what we see today is a result of all of the other protests we've ever seen in our timeline since 2009, or 1998, 2009, 2019, and 2022 being Women Life Freedom Movement, where women were coming out in protest. And what I'm hearing from the ground is that women are more brave to come out as a result of the previous protests, and you see more of them, and they're getting braver in different acts of defiance. And as you saw, the burning of portrait of Khamenei is an act of defiance itself. This burning of images actually came from another story back in November, where Omid Salak, a 20-something-year-old young man, was killed hours after burning Khamenei's portrait. So this is a continuation of those efforts, and people are just showing their discontent. And women are also hand in hand with men protesting. I've also seen images of women, elderly women, outside protesting, women in hijab on the corner, just chanting death to dictator. And I've seen people going out in wheelchair. I've heard of accounts of people going out with their kids in strollers. So these are not terrorists. The images are clear. This is all segments of the society and all ages, to be fair.
Now, many are calling this protest a digital revolution, saying that this protest was largely driven by social media, and the fact that despite an internet blockade imposed by the Iranian government, social media played a big role, and even Elon Musk's Starlink has been has been a big help to the Iranian protests. So how do you decode this?
No, it's very much on the streets, and people have had a journey to get to this point. I've had 46 years of journey to this very point. What I've seen in the past 3 years is a lot of re-education from the population trying to learn about their past and the truth and debunk propaganda. So the last 3 years has really been intense, especially with all the mass murders we saw during Masa Amini, the executions from that protest were still going on. So were witnessing late last year of execution of protesters of that movement. So this is not I wouldn't call it a digital protest. It's very much on the ground, it's on the streets, and it's people's livelihood. So it's very, very real, in fact.
Now, you mentioned that there was a massive protest supporting the people of Iran in London. We've also seen visuals from LA, from across the globe, of people coming to the streets in support of the people of Iran and the protests taking place in Iran. How do you see this support, and how do you see, is the Iranian diaspora really now coming together in support of the people of Iran?
Oh, absolutely. The diaspora was really empowered 3 years ago when we all started translating news coming out from Iran, and we've been practicing working together ever since. So we've worked together for this very moment to be able to cascade the voices from within, but also to support their efforts outside and literally mirror what they're doing inside to the best of our capability. And that's why you've probably seen large protests in Canada and LA, where there was a huge population of Iranians residing. This is really a mirror, and the diaspora is very much connected and working together.
Now, my last question to you is that, Haleh, how do you see this really play out? Because on one hand, after 3 weeks, protests are only growing larger. At the same time, the crackdown from the Iranian regime, the government, is becoming more and more violent. The death toll is growing. At the same time, US President Trump continues to back these protests. But at the same time, reports suggest that he's also considering military intervention, military strikes in Iran. So how do you see this play out in the long run?
I trust the Crown Prince's words that we do not need boots on the ground, but we do need help, and we do appreciate the strong leadership of Trump. So, I mean, from what we can see is, the regime is getting harsher and the crackdowns are getting harsher. We're getting accounts of machine guns being placed in squares, and this is war machine guns. And therefore, we do need some sort of help. But we must define what that help means. It has to go to the people, and the people who we have actually managed to speak to have said that unarmed protesters are not going to be able to achieve much. So we do need some intervention of some sort, but it may not mean boots on the ground. It could be in different ways.
Well, thank you, Haleh Blake, British-Iranian activist, joining us on NDTV to help us understand better the on-ground sentiment in Iran and decode these developments. Thank you for joining us on NDTV.